Twin Zeros at 4870 North Harlem Avenue in Harwood Heights, Illinois. Check out the full menu at twinzeros.com. Twin Zeros Restaurant in Harwood Heights not only serves traditional gyros, but also has chicken gyro sandwiches. Twin Zeros also serves a variety of sandwiches ranging from cheeseburgers and Vienna beef hot dogs that have recently been inducted into the Vienna Beef Hot Dog Hall of Fame, Italian beef, Italian sausage, and combo sandwiches, to ethnic favorites such as Slovaki and Grecian chicken. Slovaki is shish kebabs, specifically chicken or pork shish kebabs, grilled to perfection, served on a warm pita with tomatoes, onions, and our homemade tzatziki sauce. You can also enjoy barbecue ribs served every day. Twins is open 7 days a week and also delivers locally. Located at 4870 North Harlem Avenue in Harwood Heights. Check out the full menu at twinzeros.com. That's twinzeros.com.
Six bayonets, brothers and sisters. I am Chief Warrant Officer 5, Michael Francis Tooman, your host for the Chief Guard of the Republic radio show here on 1410 AM, WRMN Elgin, noon to 1 p.m. every Saturday. Simulcasted on WRMN's YouTube channel, also live streaming via WRMN.com. And so for those of you that have already listened to me on my first broadcast, this is actually my second broadcast. I'm into my second hour. I'll give you a little background on my bona fides. I did 38 years in the Army Reserve and National Guard, 5 combat and hazardous duty major deployments, multiple minor deployments to not so hazardous areas. I had several different military MOSs. I was Special Operations Certified, which isn't Special Forces. Any Special Forces guy will tell you that. In fact, if someone says that they were Special Operations, it's likely they were not a Green Beret. Because if you're a Green Beret, hey, just say you're a Green Beret. And on top of that, I made it up to the illustrious rank of Chief Warrant Officer 5. That's the highest warrant officer rank. Technically, we're outranked by a second lieutenant, but we massively outrank sergeant majors. The other thing is in my civilian career, because most of my Army career was done as a reservist or National Guard member. And the times I was on active duty was for training or on a deployment, but I did help on what they call operational special work, operational support orders, and that was at the Pentagon. So I worked on the Army staff a little bit, and I tell you, I had some great learning experiences to learn how the military works out there. In my civilian career, full-time career, I was a Chicago police officer. I worked 6 years in patrol, and then I was blessed to make detective in 1996, and I did another 21 years on the job and retired in 2017. If you have any questions about that you feel I may be an expert and can answer any of your questions, I'll gladly answer them. If I don't have an actual answer, I'm not going to BS you or make stuff up or just try to impress you or dazzle you. I'll mark down the question you had that I could not answer, and the next week I will come in with an answer for you. All right. When I was done with my Army career and the police department career, I decided to write about a lot of my adventures and a lot of my experiences using the background of the novel. So it could have been true. Some of the stories could have been true, but the names of characters have been changed. You know, I try not to get way out there in my writings. So my writings can be found on Amazon under Michael Francis Tooman or Michael Tooman novels. So Matt, is there anyone calling in?
Nothing yet.
Okay.
I'm joining the show though too. Now the thing is, we have only one camera working today, so I will still be a part of the show, but I'll be off the screen. So you'll just hear my voice floating around.
Yeah, I got to check my shirt to make sure the pocket's on the outside. The other day, I slipped it on. I don't, unbutton all the buttons. And I slipped it on like you would a T-shirt. And I was walking around half the day not realizing it was inside out and wondering where the pocket went.
Yeah. See, you know what? I did that this morning. My shirt was inside out this morning. I go, oh, okay, before I leave the house, better make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there.
The old Mayor Daley in Chicago, the story goes, this is the boss. You know, he was the younger Mayor Daley's father, but very politically astute gentleman, loved and hated by many. Just made a real political force of nature. And he had one guy hired that operated the elevator. And by this time, you didn't need elevator operators. But this guy kept his job because he was the only one that was bold enough to let the mayor know when his fly was open.
Oh,
So,
well, I guess that's good though.
it is good. You got to have someone out there that tells you when you're being foolish or you look foolish.
Right.
You know, we all know about the story of the emperor's new clothes.
Oh, is that?
So the story goes, right? This very powerful emperor is looking for a new outfit, and he calls around the country to find the best tailors, haberdasheries, and everything. And a guy comes in, and he's a total con man, and he has no sewing skills, no material or anything. So he tells the emperor that this material and this cut is only really wise, smart, enlightened people could see this. If you're poor or average, you won't be able to see it. So all of his hangers-on, they hear this, and they don't want to seem like they're dumb. So they keep telling the emperor that this new outfit that the con man was making for him, oh, it's wonderful, it's great, it looks fantastic, makes you look thinner, makes you look taller, everything else. So they're all telling him that. So he wants to show it off. So he goes on a parade through the streets. And in the middle of the parade, one little boy out of nowhere goes, the emperor's naked.
I know this story.
Yeah, and then everyone knew he was naked, but he was listening to I don't know how to pronounce, sycophant, followers on, hangers on, entourage.
Yeah.
All right, so they don't really tell you the truth. They just tell you what you want to hear. Kind of sucking up to you. So I tended to be that sort of guy in the military and on the police department.
Okay.
Bosses didn't like that.
Yeah.
I can't be too polite. I tried to, you know. I don't intentionally try to go out and hurt other people's feelings. All right, so that gets into my bona fides, and one of the things, like my expertise, is as a soldier, retired now, 38 years, but also as a veteran. And I have a strong feeling for all the veterans organizations. And they say there's over 2 million veterans in Illinois that still haven't registered for the VA or are not a member of a veterans organizations, people that have served and everything. Well, back in the day, before 2019, in order to be in the American Legion, everyone's heard of the Legion, it's the largest veteran organization in the United States. In order to have been a member in the Legion, you would have to, at minimum, receive a National Defense Medal. National Defense Medal, if you're on active duty during a time of war or when the Department of Defense says, okay, we're in a time of war, like during Vietnam. All right, it's a conflict, but it was a time of war. The draft was on, you know. People were going overseas, and so the National Defense Medal was open. All right. During Desert Storm, it was open. 2001, when we went out to Afghanistan, they opened it. So kids were coming out of basic training, and immediately they had the national defense because they served one day. But during the Cold War period, between Vietnam and Grenada, we went into Grenada, and that was only open for a couple months, right? And that medal wasn't open. So we weren't considered at a state of war. So a lot of guys that were on active duty for 3-4 years, maybe over in Germany, over in Korea, somewhere, they weren't allowed to join the Legion because they were considered only peacetime service. And a lot of guys, they only did 6 to 8 years in the reserves or guard. Maybe they even did more, but they never got the deployment. They never got the national defense ribbon. So in 2019, former President Trump signed into law the Legion Act. And what he said is the United States has been in a state of war since December 7th, 1941. So as long as you did honorable service in the military, whether guard, reserve, active duty, that you are now qualified to join the Legion.
Okay.
So a lot of people don't know about it. I don't think it was highly advertised over the internet or over the press or anything. I knew about it. A lot of my fellow Legion members who are in the Legion, they don't know about it. So I wanted to get the word out on that, because these guys may have been told they can't join, but now they can.
So that's something really that isn't talked about much, would you say?
No, it isn't talked about much, and especially since we have about 2 million former service members in Illinois. Illinois is a large state, right? People think of New York and California, but Illinois is one of those large states with a large population, and a lot of people join the military from Illinois. There's a lot of people, so we have a lot of veterans. And if they're not a member of the service organization, then our politicians, our leaders, the less people you have in a group, the less they care about you.
Yep.
So we put more, you could say you're a veteran, but if you're not organized into groups where you could speak as a group, right, then they're not going to listen too much. So I'm encouraging anyone that's able, that was reserve, guard, or had been told in the past that because they didn't have wartime or national emergency service that they couldn't join. I'm encouraging them to join. The other thing I'm speaking from the heart here about things that I like. Someone could call in and say, hey, you're wrong. I think you should have, I think you should have so many Valor medals before you could join this organizations or anything. It should only be for the high speed guy. But that's not my thing. I think you do your 1 day in, you do your 3 days in, you stepped up, you served, whether you got out because you had medical condition or some other thing came up, you still stepped up, joined the service. The other thing is the Veterans Administration. Unlike private organizations like the American Legion, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Disabled American Veterans, those are the big ones. There's others out there, Special Forces Association, Polish Legion of American Veterans, Italian American Veterans, lots of them. The Veterans Administration is a government organization, and it focuses on veterans' benefits.
Okay.
And some guys, one of the big things people hear about it is education benefits, which are great. I was lucky enough that in 2009, they signed a law that said anyone that had deployed, anyone that deployed post 9/11, so 2001, anyone that was in the military post 9/11, you could turn over your educational benefits to a spouse or to one of your kids, one of your children, which was great for me because by that time I had already had a college degree. I had no intent of going back to college and getting more educated, but my son was going. So as long as I continued my service in the reserves and or the guard, they would allow me to transfer those benefits. And education benefits are a big thing. The other thing is the medical benefits, right? And I've talked to a lot of veterans out there that, all right, so they're older now, but they worked a 30, 40-year career. They have health insurance either through their spouse or through their former job and everything. So he said, I don't need the VA hospitals. I don't need to register for that. I got my own private insurance. And the thing with that is I have to tell them is, again, you might not need it, but it costs you nothing to register with the VA. The more people we get registered with the Veterans Administration, the more funding they get. The more funding they get, the better services they can provide, especially to those that need the services and can't afford it. I have I got private health insurance through the military when I retired, so I pay a little bit for TRICARE. But I still use the VA because I trust my doctor there. And they were really good with my father, who was a veteran. My Uncle Mitch, he was a veteran. They did real great things for him. That was at Hines Hospital. And if you got a horror story about the VA you want to tell me, call me up. Be heard. I'll listen to you. And because I know the VA has its issues, like all government organizations. I can tell you that the military is messed up and everything. But the more active you are in it and holding the administrators' feet to the fire, the better it's going to get. So I'd like to encourage all the veterans, if you have not registered with the VA, please go out and do it. You could start the process right online at va.gov.
Absolutely. If you are interested in doing that, you can also, of course, comment live here in the chat. What we'll do is we'll take a quick little time out here, and then we'll be back with more in just a bit. Stay tuned.
Every year in Illinois, over 30,000 drivers are arrested for DUI. Due to improper testing procedures, many people end up being wrongfully charged. The book DUIs Decoded cuts right to the chase and tells you how proper DUIs arrests are supposed to be made, from the initial traffic stop to the reasoning behind the field sobriety test, all the myths and facts about taking a breathalyzer, and more. DUIs Decoded is written by nationally recognized DUI expert witness William Polarinos. Available now at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com.
If you have been charged with driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs in Cook County, DuPage County, or Lake County, Illinois, call the law office of Mark Sheblow at 773-775-5050. That's 773-775-5050. Attorney Mark Sheblow has over 29 years of law experience handling DUI defense, traffic violations, CDL violations, and Secretary of State driver's license reinstatement hearings. All aspects of your case will be examined in order to find evidence that may help your case, especially the statutory summary suspension of your driving privileges. If your breath alcohol concentration level at the time of the DUI arrest is 0.08 or more, then the summary suspension of your driver's license begins 46 days after the arrest. Time is a crucial factor in challenging the summary suspension of your driver's license. Our law office is located at 5945 North Elston Avenue in Chicago. That's 5945 North Elston Avenue in Chicago. And again, our office phone number is 773-775-5050.
Six bayonets, brothers and sisters, and I'm back. This is Chief Warrant Officer 5, retired Michael Tuman, with the Chief Guard of the Republic. So, to go back into a little more specific detail, because 38 years, well, the first 20 kind of crawled along until I realized that I was locked in for a pension, and then the next 18 years went pretty quick.
Yeah.
That's where I did the bulk of my deployments, which is great because by that time I had a little bit higher rank, you get treated a little better, paid a little more. Mm-hmm. So when I started out in the Army, I was not a very good student at Northern Illinois University, and I kind of got let go. So I went to join the Army Reserve, and I joined up as a truck driver. I wanted to be a mechanic. I had very high scores, really high scores. I could have done anything, but the recruiter was like I was just a warm body, and he didn't do any more work than he needed to do. And that's one thing about recruiting. I got nothing bad about them, right? Recruiting's a hard job. They're gonna hit their mark as soon as they can, and once they get their quota, then they might spend a little more time on you, right? But then I worked with some very fine gentlemen up in Rockford at the Charlie Company 863rd Heavy Combat Engineers. I don't even know if they're still there.
Oh, I don't know. What's it called again?
The 863rd Heavy Combat Engineer Battalion. And they were out of Rockford. So I had taken a test in basic training about my competency to learn languages. What they didn't realize was I was probably a better test taker than I was a language learner. So they told me, hey, you go to the language school. I didn't even know the military had a language school, all right? And that's one of the hidden secrets. You know, like you wouldn't know. A recruiter won't tell you unless they told them, listen, we need you to recruit so many people for the language school. The big push was Arabic and then Persian Farsi. That was the big push back a while ago because we're doing everything in Iraq and Afghanistan. But now they've gone back to Russian. Go figure. Right? So they're pushing people through to go to the Russian school. So my dad told me, you know, you really need to go to this school. My buddies tell me that this is a great school because, you know, he didn't know much. He was a paratrooper in field artillery. You know, so I said, okay, well, I went back to talk to people and talk to my commander at the 863rd, and he says, yeah, you could transfer over to the MI unit because they're short of smart people, and you got some really high scores here, you know. So I went over, and they sent me for Czech, learned the Czech language. So Bohemian, you know. And I did very poorly in languages in school. And maybe it was because I wasn't focused or I wasn't anything, but at the Czechs, at the school, the Defense Language Institute Foreign Language Clinic in Monterey, California, Presidio, Monterey, California. The Army has a very specific structure on teaching this, and it's been time tested. But it was also about the camaraderie. You know, we're all almost in the same boat at the same level, and it was great. I learned the language, and then they sent me to, we used to call it interrogator. So the interrogator school, because back then it was the Cold War, and we expected the Russian and the Warsaw Pact to come smashing through the Volga Gap, right? And we pretty much believed that the Russians were going to use the satellite state troops as the shock troops, the ones to absorb all the gunfire. So they wouldn't lose a lot of Russians. Mm-hmm. Right? So we expected them to come in the first wave. So when you have, I'm talking old school military now, you know, when you have a division front, a division troops, you're expected to, your division is expected to take about 500 prisoners a day. Right? You're going to capture 500 live prisoners. Now it's a problem. You got to talk to them. You got to go through them. You got to sift them. You got to separate them out, because they're going to have information that can change the course of the battle right then. They've seen things right then. They know things. You know, it's not like everyone assumes Gitmo. They're sending people to Gitmo, but once you get sent to Gitmo, you don't really have anything that's going to affect something on the battlefield really close for right then and there. So that was the old school training, and they call us interrogators. Now they call that human intelligence. Interrogation, much like propaganda and psychological operations, have bad connotations because people don't actually understand what they do. All right, so I come back from the school and I go, well, geez, that was great. And the reserve unit says, oh yeah, we changed our organization. We don't need Czech linguists anymore. You got to go learn Russian.
Even though you just learned
Czech. But they're both Slavic languages. And if you want to learn English grammar, you better take a foreign language. Because I knew how to speak English. I'm like, why am I learning English when I know how to speak English? Probably 75% accurately. But I didn't know what a passive participle was, a past passive participle, active tense, passive tense, the past, present, future, future perfect, adverbs, adjectives, demonstrative pronouns, all that stuff. I had no clue. If I had a clue, I would have done much better on my ACT. Yeah. So I come out of Czech, and I know the grammar. And to me, I have a little bit of logical brain, so everything I made it make sense in my head logically. So I was very good test taker. Speaking it, reading it, I'm pretty good. Writing, speaking is a little more difficult for me in a foreign language. So now I go back for Russian, and they're like, wait. Now we need you to be electronic warfare because we're short of electronic warfare people. So I'm like, okay. So it took me a while to get orders back to Monterey, California, but they had set up a satellite school at the Presidio San Francisco. All right. I was actually in that movie, The Presidio. So that's
Really?
Mark Harmon and Sean Connery were in that movie. We were just extras marching. All right. So I'm the first squad leader in the first squad of the first company of the battalion doing a passive review parade. So you could just barely see my head. I go, that's me. Every time I see it, that's me over there. So I go back there, and Russian was a lot easier because I had the Slavic language grammar down. And the words are, the Czech words, although Czechs use the English alphabet with some special characters, and the Russians use the English alphabet, the Latin alphabet. I'm sorry. Am I being a little xenocentric here? Yeah. So they use the Latin alphabet, and the Russians use Cyrillic alphabet, but it's just sounds, right? So Cyrillic made sense to me too, the alphabet. So then I go to electronic warfare school, and that was you needed a top secret security clearance, and they call it low level voice intercept now, right? We called it something else. I'm not going to talk much more about that because it could get sensitive, right? But then I came back to my unit, and the leadership had kind of changed, and I came back and they were treating me kind of poorly. I had made it up to sergeant, and for the last year and a half, I had been a sergeant in a platoon, but I was just a junior sergeant. But I had a platoon on active duty for a year, so I come back and says, now I'm due for a promotion to staff sergeant. And I go to my boys, I go, hey, when you going to put me in for staff sergeant? And I brought all sorts of paperwork back saying, this guy did a good job, he was a good leader in the class and everything, and had a real good rating. And they're like, as soon as you show some leadership ability. I go, really? Well, I had gotten married, right? And my wife was in the military. So I told him, I says, hey, I got married. I'm going to move down to Fort Polk, Louisiana, be with my wife. So give me my transfer papers so I could find a unit down there. The thing was, I was in a unit where it required a top secret clearance, a language, and to pass the skill set. Very few people could do that, so I was one of the few in that battalion that was considered qualified. Clearance, language, skill set, right? Plus, I could pass a physical fitness test and my weigh-in. They couldn't say anything because I was married. So they give me the letter, right? And I go to Arlington Heights to the psychological operations unit, and I just show them the letter because I've been released from that unit, and they take me. Oh, they were mad. They were mad. But I'm like, hey, and I retrained with psychological operations. They call it propaganda, but it's advertising. It's marketing. It's fantastic. If they had a warrant officer MOS, a warrant officer position in psychological operations, I would have never left.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is take a quick time out, and we'll be back with more Chief Guard of the Republic. Stay tuned.
Still no one calling in.
Twin Zeros at 4870 North Harlem Avenue in Harwood Heights, Illinois. Check out the full menu at twinzeros.com. Twin Zeros Restaurant in Harwood Heights not only serves traditional gyros, but also has chicken gyro sandwiches. Twin Zeros also serves a variety of sandwiches ranging from cheeseburgers and Vienna beef hot dogs that have recently been inducted into the Vienna Beef Hot Dog Hall of Fame, Italian beef, Italian sausage, and combo sandwiches. To ethnic favorites such as Slovaki and Grecian chicken. Slovaki is shish kebabs, specifically chicken or pork shish kebabs, grilled to perfection, served on a warm pita with tomatoes, onions, and our homemade tzatziki sauce. You can also enjoy barbecue ribs served every day. Twins is open 7 days a week and also delivers locally. Located at 4870 North Harlem Avenue in Harwood Heights. Check out the full menu at twinzeros.com. That's twinzeros.com.
Real estate, be it residential or commercial, is often a person's most significant and priciest asset. Entering into a contract to buy or sell a real estate property is much more than just filling in the missing blanks on the printed contract. It's wise to hire a lawyer to prepare or review the offer to purchase real estate and take full advantage of his legal expertise. With Mark Sheblow, you will gain an attorney with over 26 years of legal practice and one who has helped thousands of clients to buy or sell their homes or investment property. We will safeguard your interests and might be able to even negotiate a better bargain than a client without proper legal counsel ever could. Oftentimes, a prospective buyer will submit an offer without first consulting an attorney, not realizing that once the offer is accepted by the seller, it becomes a binding contract. And the terms of that contract are not easy to be changed afterwards. Likewise, as a seller, you too will benefit from first consulting an attorney before signing. Feel free to call us for consultation at the law offices of Mark Sheblow at 773-775-5050. Our website is sheblowlawoffice.com. Mark Sheblow can be reached 6 days a week at 773-775-5050, Monday through Saturday, located at 5945 North Elston Avenue in Chicago. That's attorney Mark Sheblow, 773-775-5050.
Fixed bayonets, brothers and sisters, and we're back. Chief Warrant Officer 5, Michael Francis Tuman. And no one seems to be asking me any questions. Maybe I sound a little scary, but I'm actually very approachable. But Matt here, and I'll tell you what, I have never worked with anyone named Matt who is a bad guy. I mean, in the military, one of my captains, Matt, I won't use his last name, but I deployed to him in Afghanistan. The guard treated him poorly. Great guy, fantastic guy. Follow him into combat. If your arm fell off, he was such a nice guy that he could probably cure it. He could probably put it back on. Such a nice guy, right? And smart, really smart. And then there's another major, Matt. He was a major. He'd been a lieutenant when I was a warrant officer, when I just made warrant officer. But nice, another smart guy who mentored me on a lot of military stuff. So. But you asked me about a question if I've ever worked on radio. But with psychological operations, we have radio stations. We had broadcast journalists who operate radio stations. So dating way back to 1996 in Bosnia, during I-4, the initial forces going into Bosnia to be peacekeepers. The next thing was S4, which was how can I forget it? Stabilization forces in Bosnia, so S4, right? So we had all these radio stations that belonged to a theater level. That's a 4-star general, all right? So the commander of U.S. Forces Europe, who I believe was Shinseki at the time, he owned all these radio stations. Even though they were down locally, and I was a local psyoper with loudspeakers and stuff like that, and handing out leaflets by hand, we didn't own those radio stations, but they were local to us. And the task force commander, guy in charge of 1,100 troops, a lieutenant colonel, he couldn't understand kind of that relationship. Even the division commander, General Grange, didn't really understand that relationship. That's a strategic asset. I'm a tactical asset. I can't tell the general's boys what to do. Right? So we had some slower times there. So they had a mission for us. They wanted to know what the listening percentage of Radio Mirror 106.7 FM, right, in Bosnia was. What is the listening percentage of the people? Because they had their own radio stations there, and we would give them stuff to play, right? And mostly Radio Mirror was playing, as I told General Grange, top 40 Euro trash. And then in between, they would have commercials that we would put on, love each other, or the Americans aren't here for you to shoot at, or, look out for the mines and stuff like that. Well, like I said, so we went out on a mission. The first thing we did is we went out, and we have American radios, right? AM, FM boom boxes. Back in the day, everyone had the boom boxes. So we go out in our Hummers, and we make it about 15 miles, and we could still barely get them in. So that's FM, line of sight, and we only had 2,000 watts. They only had 2,000 watts. So we start going into the little villages, and we're like, hey, have you ever listened to Radio Mir? And I got my Croatian interpreter with me and everything, and they're looking at me. I go 106.7. Now they're looking like a little crazy. I says, hey, let me go to your radio because I see they got a radio and tune it in, right? Mm-hmm. All the radios made in Yugoslavia only went up to 104.
Ah.
So they had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to put up these radio stations at 106.7, not realizing that 99% of the Bosnian population there only had radios that went up to 104.
Oh, goodness.
So they couldn't even listen to it. Now, we put this up in the report, but our survey, because we do surveys to check on the way people feel, it's like marketing, right? So we came up with 0.7% of the population would listen to the 0.7%. Yeah. So I says, if we send this up in a report, it's going to confuse these guys because I guarantee you the bigwigs will go, 70%.
Yeah.
So I said, we're going to round this up to 1%. We're just going to round it up 1% and send up the report. Well, our boys down in Sarajevo, again, the theater level guys got this report down from us, and they spent $50,000 of operational funds to redo our survey. They hired a professional company to come and redo the same survey that we did. Now, Sarajevo was different. It wasn't Indian country, excuse the term. It wasn't the Wild Wild West like where we were at in Birchgo, right? So they came back and they said, yeah, those guys, their survey's flawed because we only came up with 0.7%.
Oh.
Yeah. So, even on the highest levels, that's when I'm learning that they paid people are paid in the State Department and everything to know these things. Mm-hmm. So that when you spend money to put in a radio station, you should know what channel you want to be on. And every channel above 100, the people didn't like listening to it because it was all communist propaganda, according to them. So you had private channels that as soon as they, Tito passed away and everything fell apart and people had money, they put up their own radio stations and they're broadcasting, but none of them would have a frequency over 100.
Okay. Interesting.
So
that's kind of a bummer that had happened.
it was no one told us this. I'm like, and here at the time I was only a sergeant first class.
Okay.
All right, but that's pretty high up in the enlisted world because you have 1 to 9 ranks. All right, with a 9 you'll hear the term sergeant major. All right, master sergeant's an 8, also first sergeant, sergeant major. All those all seem big. But back before 1954, a sergeant first class, also known as platoon sergeant, a first sergeant, a master sergeant, and a sergeant major, and a command sergeant major were all the same pay grade.
Oh.
It wasn't a promotion. It was just like a lateral move. You still made the same amount of pay as the platoon sergeant did. Right, so then they invented those super ranks. Right? So I thought I was considerably up there for an enlisted guy. But it was shortly after that I got promoted back into military intelligence.
Okay.
And I didn't want to drive all the way up to Fort McCoy. So I transferred to the Guard, and that's where I got picked up for warrant officer for back in military intelligence.
There you go. That's so interesting about the radio, though.
Yeah, no, you think, look at this. They know what they're doing. And you're like, I bet you they got something really basic wrong.
Something that they missed. We've got Paul in the comments here. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Paul.
Hopefully you're having a good day so far. We're into the almost to 12:45 here.
Yeah.
So we're almost there. So what we'll do actually is we'll take a quick time out, and we'll be back with more in just a bit.
Are you looking for a way to be creative right now? Have you ever wanted to learn to watercolor paint? You can now do that from the comfort of your own home with Zoom watercolor classes. Get professional instruction from nationally showing artist Victoria Elizabeth. These classes are step-by-step, broken down with easy-to-understand instructions. They are affordable, too, at $15 for a 2-hour class. Visit our website at victoriaelizabethart.com to find out more. That's victoriaelizabethart.com.
Is your Illinois driver's license suspended? Your driving privileges are important to your livelihood. You need your driver's license to drive to work, get the kids to school, or go shopping. Your driving privileges are crucial for your lifestyle. If your driver's license is suspended, call attorney Mark Sheblow at 773-775-5050 to begin procedures to have your driver's license reinstated by the Illinois Secretary of State's office. That phone number for Mark Sheblow is 773-775-5050. Mark Sheblow is an attorney with over 29 years of experience. Call him today at 773-775-5050. Visit his website at sheblowlawoffice.com. That's SCIBLO lawoffice.com.
Six Bayonets, brothers and sisters, we're back, and we have Paul on the phone.
How are you?
Hey, thanks for joining into the show today.
It's awesome. Hey, Mike, you want to tell them the story about how you had to take the test at the embassy? I always found that to be an interesting thing.
That was pretty cool. All right, so nothing I like better than talking about myself. I could tell stories all the day long. That's why I started writing novels, because I like telling stories. But this is a story. This is true. So I was taking the test for sergeant for the police department, and I got deployed. And the second half of the test was coming up, but I'm overseas in Bosnia. So I managed, they have a thing called Defense Network Subscriber Line, which the Department of Defense uses, so you could call back overseas for free. Back then, there wasn't cell phones, there were a few, but calling back overseas for free, right? So I call in, have to stay up all night because we're on the other side of the world, almost like 7 hours. But I call into the city and I says, hey, save a test for me. And they go, oh no, we're going to send the test to Zagreb, which isn't in Bosnia, it's in Croatia, right? Okay. And you could take it at a law office there. So I go to the colonel, our task force commander, with whom I had a good relationship, and with their sergeant major, and I says, hey, can I take my boys to Zagreb, because for my civilian job, I have to take this test. All right? And he says, no problem. So we're going to Zagreb. I packed 2 Hummers with people, right? And now we have, right, we're special operations, PSYOPs, right? So we don't fall under Big Army, which had a 4-vehicle convoy role, right? With crew-served weapons, which is heavy machine guns. So you couldn't even go out the gate unless you had 4 vehicles, crew-served weapons, like you're ready for World War III, right? Mm-hmm. Like Mad Max, Yeah. But we're special operations, so we're the same type of people, same blood, everything, education, but we're special operations, so supposedly we're less bulletproof. We're more bulletproof. So we pack up, and I got the grenade launcher, the 203. I got my 9mm. My boys, we got the 2 M60 machine guns, known as the Pig. Got them on the Pintos, on the Hummers, and we're allowed to cross over the mighty Sava River at the bridge, the Birchko Bridge, and we drive to Zagreb. And spend the night at an old Croatian communist Yugoslav base that the British had taken over, because they're a part of NATO, they're part of the SESFOR, peacekeeping force in the Balkans. And we come in there, and they don't know what to make of us, because we got all these heavy weapons, and their arms room is like for these guys carrying their pistols. Oh, here's my pistol. Can I check it in for the night? We come in. We got cans of ammunition. I got grenades, grenade launcher, my rifle, my pistol. And they're like, we don't have anywhere to store this stuff. Yeah. I go, I don't care. They told us we can't come on base with it. You're the arms room. We're going to lock it up here. I don't care what you do with it. So, so we've been driving all day, and we go to the cafeteria, and you know it's a cafeteria because there's a big sign on the building that says cafeteria because the Croatians use the Latin alphabet. Mm-hmm. It's pretty easy to read, you know. It's almost like a generic term. Everyone uses it, right? So they have it set up. We're used to eating in a tent, right? You know, slop out of a tent on a slop tray. You know, there you go. No one's forcing you to eat it. They have got it set up really nice. I mean, they got plates and actual flatware, right? So it's dinner time. No one's there to sign in, but they got the sheets there for signing in for the meals. So I walk in, and it looks like a buffet style. So just serve yourself. I've been to buffets. I've been to weddings. I've been to places, you know, have a buffet, right? So me and the boys go in there. We're filling up the plates, and out comes this British cook. Now, he's a staff sergeant in the British Army, and he is losing his mind. He's screaming at us, you know, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he's using curse phrases. I'm not going to repeat the curse phrases, right?
Right.
And so I says, hey, Sergeant, let's not do this in front of the troops. I was the senior ranking guy, right? I says, let's talk about this outside. And I'm intentionally facing away from the building with him, right? And then I says, hey, why don't we turn around? And I look at the top of the building because he's like, he is swearing and goes, what do you think this is? Some sort of cafeteria, right? Yeah. So I brought him outside. I look up at the building and I read it. Cafeteria. I says, yes, I do, you illiterate. I says, you need me to read it to you? So I says, maybe I should talk to your officer or the way you're talking to the senior NCO myself, right? Mm-hmm. So that blew off. We ate dinner and everything. I go into take the test, right? And now we got the same weapons and everything. And we're in this law office and we walk in and they thought we were an S4 raiding party coming in to storm their office.
Oh, goodness.
But I had to sit there, you know, and in my uniform and everything. And the whole thing was having this guy watch me take the test so I'm not cheating, you know, because I'm all by myself there, right? So I could really cheat. And he goes out, he comes back, and he goes, time's up. In 2 hours, an hour early, right? I thought I had 3 hours. And then he looks at his watch and goes, sorry. But that just panics you, you know, like, what? Yeah. If you would have given me a 5-minute notice, I would have went C all the way down. Yeah, so, the next time I tried to take the sergeant's test, I was in Afghanistan. And the city went with Ernst & Young was the consultants that they had running the sergeant's exam. So I'm in the middle of Afghanistan in a war zone, right? And they say, I use the DSN line and it says, hey, save a copy for me. When I get back, I'll take it. Oh, no, I might cheat. Someone might tell me what was on it, right? Mm-hmm. Like the boss's kids didn't already have all the answers, you know? So they said, yeah, you could take it at a law office in Islamabad. I go, well, how am I going to get there? They go, well, that's up to you. I go, so you're telling me I got to cross the Afghanistan war zone by myself, you know, desert from a combat zone, go to Islamabad where they just blew up 8 Americans in a church, and I don't look Pakistani, I'm sorry, all right? And go take this test? Well, yeah. What's the problem? Because I'm talking to a person from Ernst & Young. Mm-hmm. They don't even know where Afghanistan is. So that I decided that's God telling me I'm not going to be not heresy. There's another word for it. All right. But I've learned to see God in my life. All right. Mm-hmm. I learned to see his actions and everything. And that was him telling me, you don't need to be a sergeant, Mike. You're happy as a detective. And I'm like, yes, I am. Yes, I am.
You enjoy being a detective?
Oh, God, yes. Oh, man. If I had to be a patrolman like my brother my whole career, I would just, I wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
I'd be in Statesville, if not a federal prison.
We've also got Dean DeLaley here in the comments. Hi, Matt. Good piece on the radio information. Nice show. And the producer, too, of course. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Matt great producer. You know, now I understand when I'm listening to these big fancy jocks. Look out, Dan Bongino, I'm coming for your job. Matt's coming for whatever. I should know the producer's name. He's always talking to him for Dan Bongino, you know.
Ah, okay.
So when I make it big, Matt, you're coming with me.
Oh boy.
I know. So yeah, that was an interesting thing. You know, I just taking the test, and I wonder why couldn't an Army guy sit there, because they got test officers. I was a test officer where your whole job is to give the people the test and watch them so they don't cheat. To time them and everything. Why they couldn't give it to an officer in the Army, you know, ship it over. They had DHS over there. Ship it over to them. Have that captain or major or whatever, or even lieutenant, sign off saying, yeah, I watched Sergeant Tooman take this test and he didn't cheat.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. We've got about 3 minutes left.
Yeah. So next week, be my third show. I hope I get more people calling in. I'm going to push it out there, try to get people to call in. I'm going to threaten my friends, you know, call in or, you know. And, but the next week after that, I'm going to get my buddy Ranger Joe Kelisek to cover for me, because I got a couple important weddings to go to. And I just don't want to do a canned show. And I can't think of this guy. His name might not be Matt, but he's another great guy that even though I met some really bad people in the Gardner Reserve, I had met, for every 10 people I met, there was one good guy that balanced them all out.
Oh, nice. And he'll be on here, not this coming
October, the first weekend in October. I hope so. If not, I'll find someone else, and they'll be good people.
Well, sounds good. I look forward to it.
Thank you, Matt.
And thank you, of course. And thank you to Paul for joining in today. How's your day going so far?
Real good. Real good.
Very good.
Great show, you guys.
Don't forget to check out my webpage, Psylink.net, PSYLINK.net. So if you're interested in my novels and some of the Public Guardians, every single story there is based on an investigation I did. So I changed the names, changed the areas, the times, and everything. But, you know, I didn't make these stories up. They actually happened.
So it's Psylink.net. Is that what you said?
Yes, Psylink.net. I was surprised that no one took that. I'm like, wow, it's out there and it's only $10.99?
There you go. So there it is, Psylink.net.
Yeah.
Michael F. Tooman, also Flying Monkey 5 November. We talked about that last time.
Yeah, we talked about that last time. My call sign, my radio call sign.
Very cool. You've got the novels on here. Any contact information, of course. Action-packed novels for your reading pleasure. Sure. And definitely feel free to check out all that information. That is Psylink.net. You've got some great books here, of course. I know we did talk a little bit about that last time. And I look forward to talking a bit more here, too, when it comes to the future. I definitely also want to know more about your detective work, too.
Oh, yeah.
That definitely sounds very interesting for sure. Because detective work, you know, you're solving mysteries.
Yeah, I love them. I love good mystery. If you got a mystery, call me in. I love solving a good mystery.
Absolutely.
Especially the Scooby-Doo sort.
Yeah. Well, folks, this does wrap it up here for... I almost said out to lunch because I'm used to doing the out to lunch show.
Chief Guard of the Republic.
Chief Guard of the Republic. Thanks so much for joining us today. Hopefully everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.
Are you looking for a way to be creative right now? Have you ever wanted to learn watercolor paint? You can now do that from the comfort of your own home with Zoom watercolor classes. Get professional instruction from nationally showing artist Victoria Elizabeth. These classes are step-by-step, broken down with easy-to-understand instructions. They're affordable, too, at $15 for a 2-hour class. Visit our website at victoriaelizabethart.com to find out more. That's victoriaelizabethart.com. Every year in Illinois, over 30,000 drivers are arrested for DUI. Due to improper testing procedures, many people end up being wrongfully charged. The book DUI is Decoded cuts right to the chase and tells you how proper DUI's arrests are supposed to be made, from the